5 relatives to avoid after 60. As we age, relationships with family can become more complicated. It's a truth we don't always want to face, but as we reach our 60s and beyond, it becomes clearer than ever that some family members simply aren't good for our well-being. While we might not want to admit it, there are certain relatives we should start considering avoiding as we move into our later years. If you're in your 60s or close to it, this message is particularly important. Relationships that once felt warm and supportive may no longer serve our best interests. Instead, some family connections can be draining, toxic, or even harmful. In fact, according to studies, the quality of our relationships in later life plays a significant role in our mental health and longevity. So, the question becomes, which relatives should we be cautious of after 60? Let's go through 5 of them, and number 4 might just surprise you. First on the list are the relatives who are constantly critical. We all have that one family member who seems to have an opinion about everything we do, no matter how small or insignificant. This relative may think they are offering helpful advice, but in reality, their words chip away at your self-esteem and make you second-guess yourself at every turn. It can start innocently enough. Maybe they don't agree with the way you decorate your home or how you manage your finances. But over time, this constant flow of suggestions can start to feel like a never-ending barrage of negativity. I remember a friend of mine who had an aunt who was constantly on her case about her career choices. Every family gathering seemed to include a lecture about how she wasn't doing enough, how she should be pursuing a different career path, or how she wasn't making enough money. At first, she thought it was just her aunt's way of showing concern, but over time, the comments wore her down. She began to question every decision she made, wondering if she was truly on the right path. The stress of constantly trying to meet her aunt's impossible expectations started to affect her mental health. She found herself feeling more anxious and less confident in her own abilities. It got to a point where she realized that her aunt's criticism wasn't helping her, it was only hurting her. The thing about critical relatives is that their comments can often feel like they come from a place of concern, which makes it even harder to set boundaries. When someone tells you they're only trying to help, it's easy to feel guilty for pushing back. But here's the truth. Constant criticism, even if it's disguised as advice, can be incredibly damaging. It doesn't matter if they're family, the emotional toll is still the same. Research has shown that chronic criticism can lead to higher levels of anxiety and depression. A study conducted by the University of California found that people who experience consistent criticism, whether from a partner, friend, or family member, have a much higher risk of developing long-term mental health issues. As you age, the need for peace and comfort becomes even more important. At this stage in life, you may be looking to enjoy your time, find joy in your relationships, and focus on things that bring you happiness. Having a critical family member around can undermine all of that. It's exhausting to constantly defend your choices, explain yourself, or feel like you're not good enough. Worse yet, the physical toll that stress from criticism can take on your body is significant. Studies have shown that stress, especially from close relationships, can lead to physical health problems such as high blood pressure, weakened immune systems, and even chronic pain. If your family member's constant negativity is affecting your health, it may be time to reevaluate the relationship. In my own experience, I had a close relative who was always quick to judge my life choices. Whether it was my choice of job or the way I handled family matters, they always seemed to have something critical to say. It wasn't until I started to feel physically drained after every encounter with them that I realized the true impact of their words. I noticed I was getting headaches and feeling unusually fatigued, especially after long conversations with this person. It became clear to me that their constant criticism was affecting me on a much deeper level than I had originally thought. That realization led me to set firmer boundaries and limit my interactions with this relative. As difficult as it was at first, it was one of the best decisions I made for my mental and physical well-being. If you have a critical relative in your life, it's important to recognize the impact they may be having on you. It's not about cutting ties with family, but about protecting your peace. Setting boundaries, like limiting the time spent with that person or even addressing the criticism directly, can help you regain control of your own well-being. Remember, you don't have to tolerate toxic behavior, even if it comes from someone you're related to. Your health, both mental and physical, should always come first. Next are the relatives who are always asking for money. When you reach your later years, financial security becomes one of your top priorities. You've worked hard your entire life, carefully saving for retirement or to ensure you can live comfortably in your golden years. But then, there's that one family member who seems to always need a financial handout. They might approach you with a sob story about how urgent their situation is, promising to pay you back in a few months. But months go by, and the money is never returned. And what's even worse, when you say no, they can turn angry or resentful, as though you're the one in the wrong. It becomes a constant cycle of lending money, only to never see it again, and it can feel like you're being taken advantage of. A close friend of mine experienced this situation with her brother. He was always in and out of tough financial situations, and every time, he would ask her for help. At first, she felt obligated to support him, thinking it was a one-time thing, but soon it became a recurring pattern. He would call her with the same excuses: his car broke down, his rent was overdue, or his child needed something essential. Every time, she lent him money, only for him to promise he would pay her back, but it never happened. Over time, her financial situation started to get tighter. She found herself dipping into her savings, worried about what would happen if she stopped helping him. Worse, she started feeling emotionally drained, like her brother only reached out when he needed something. Eventually, she realized that he didn't seem to value her generosity or the boundaries she set. It became clear that if she didn't stop, she would never have the financial peace she so desperately needed. This kind of constant financial stress can have a serious toll on your mental health. According to a study by the National Institute on Aging, older adults who face financial strain are more likely to experience higher rates of depression and anxiety. It makes sense. Constantly giving money to relatives who take advantage of your generosity leaves you feeling unappreciated and resentful. The emotional weight of this can be overwhelming. It's not just the money that's being drained, it's your energy, your peace of mind, and your sense of security. The hardest part is often saying no, especially when it involves family. You want to help, but you also need to protect yourself emotionally and financially. It's important to set boundaries. If a relative cannot respect your boundaries, then it's time to take a step back and reevaluate the relationship. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person, it makes you someone who values their own well-being. You've earned your peace, and it's okay to hold on to it. Now, let's talk about relatives who are always gossiping or starting drama. We've all encountered them, the family members who seem to thrive on stirring up trouble, whether it's by gossiping about others or creating unnecessary conflict. At first, it might seem harmless. They might invite you into their world of complaints, offering their opinions on every family member's life choices or pointing out faults they've noticed in others. But over time, this kind of behavior can become emotionally draining. It starts to feel like you can't get through a family gathering without hearing about someone's drama. They might even try to pull you into it, using you as a sounding board for their complaints about others or the world in general. I remember a time when a relative of mine was constantly pulling me into family disputes. It was like I couldn't escape it. Whenever we were together, it was never about having a simple conversation or enjoying each other's company. Instead, she would start talking about another family member, complaining about their behavior or decisions, and before I knew it, I was somehow involved in their conflict. It was always uncomfortable, and it felt like a constant weight hanging over me. At first, I didn't mind listening because I thought I could help or at least offer a neutral perspective. But as time passed, I began to realize how much of an emotional toll it was taking on me. I felt drained and unsettled, and it started affecting my mood long after the conversation was over. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pulled into a toxic cycle of gossip and conflict, and that wasn't the kind of energy I wanted to invite into my life. The truth is, gossip and family drama can lead to higher levels of stress, and it can even affect your physical health. A study conducted by the University of California found that social stress, like being involved in gossip or family conflict, can have long-term negative effects on your health. The stress of constantly dealing with drama can weaken your immune system, lead to poorer cardiovascular health, and increase anxiety. The more you allow yourself to be dragged into the emotional chaos, the more it chips away at your mental and physical well-being. As you age, you likely have enough perspective to know that drama is just not worth your time. You've lived through enough to realize that no matter how many times the cycle repeats, it doesn't change. The key is to recognize when you're being dragged into unnecessary conflict and take steps to distance yourself. Instead of investing your time and energy in gossip and drama, focus on nurturing relationships that bring positivity, peace, and joy. Life is too short to spend it in the middle of other people's chaos. Here's where it gets a little shocking: the relatives who are overly dependent on you. This one may not be immediately obvious, but it's something that many people in their 60s face. As you get older, there may be relatives who begin to depend on you for everything, whether it's emotional support, financial help, or even daily care. It might seem flattering at first, but this dependency can be incredibly draining. Some relatives may begin to rely on you to the point where it becomes an obligation rather than a choice. They may manipulate you into feeling guilty if you don't help them, or worse, they might make you feel responsible for their happiness or success. Research has shown that this type of dependency can lead to caregiver burnout, which can affect both your mental and physical health. Instead of enjoying the final chapters of your life, you may end up feeling resentful, overburdened, and exhausted. It's essential to recognize these patterns early and take steps to protect your well-being. It's important to remember that you don't have to be everyone's caretaker, and it's okay to prioritize your own needs. Lastly, there are the relatives who refuse to respect your boundaries. As we age, we become more aware of the importance of boundaries, what we are willing to tolerate and what we aren't. Unfortunately, not all family members understand or respect those boundaries. Whether it's pushing you to do something you don't want to do, criticizing your choices, or simply ignoring your needs, some relatives have a way of making you feel like your feelings don't matter. A lack of boundaries can lead to emotional exhaustion and feelings of being trapped. According to the American Psychological Association, people who struggle to establish and maintain healthy boundaries often experience higher levels of stress, which can contribute to mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. The inability to say no to family members who continually overstep their bounds can leave you feeling helpless. If someone in your life constantly disregards your limits, it may be time to consider limiting your contact with them. Establishing clear, firm boundaries is essential for maintaining a sense of peace and control over your life. These 5 types of relatives: those who are critical, constantly asking for money, starting drama, overly dependent, or disrespecting boundaries, can be toxic to your mental and physical health as you age. As hard as it may be, sometimes the best thing you can do for your well-being is to distance yourself from these relationships. It's not about cutting off family completely, it's about protecting yourself and creating a peaceful, supportive environment in your later years. Remember, your time and energy are precious, and you deserve to spend them with those who uplift and support you. If you're finding that certain family members are weighing you down, it's okay to step back. Focus on the people in your life who bring positivity, joy, and support. In the end, your mental, emotional, and physical health should always come first. Making these changes may not be easy, but they are necessary for living a fulfilling and peaceful life after 60. Take a good look at your relationships and ask yourself, who adds value to your life? Who supports you in your journey? Those are the people who deserve your time and energy. Family dynamics can shift as we age, and it's important to recognize when a relationship has become harmful. Don't be afraid to make the tough decisions that will ultimately bring you more peace and happiness.